Okay, welcome everyone. And today I am so excited to have Jeremy Cross with me today. And Jeremy works as a peer supporter doing one-on-one support privately. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah,
peer support one-on-one. Yeah.
fantastic.
Thank you for having
And
me.
thank you so much. And Jeremy has just launched his new book. I didn't realize it was last month. And it's called Finding My Lost Life: The Fall to Addiction and Rise to Recovery. And I've had a flick through. It is so far amazing. But I will put the links to everything, obviously, in the notes and how people can find you and all about the book. But
Awesome.
tell me, Jeremy, welcome. Tell me about how you came to be here.
Thank you for having me. I've recently been trying to since publishing my book, I'm actually a self-published author. Been trying to spread the message, get some good exposure from my book to help more people. I was referred to your podcast by another professional and said that you were amazing. So I wanted to be here and I love what you're doing and giving people the platform and opportunity to tell their story to help other people. So that's kind of how I got here. I'm super excited.
It's great. So happy to have you because, as we were just mentioning before we started recording, the message of recovery and the journey that we've been on is so powerful in helping other people. So even if people identify with just one bit of your story, that they'll know that there's hope and recovery is possible.
Yeah, definitely. That was one of the main messages I wanted to portray to people that you couldn't get much worse than how I was. For those of you that haven't read my book yet, I was in active addiction for 7 years. My DOC was fentanyl and crystal meth. I was on the streets of Vancouver, homeless, a slave to the drugs. In my book, I kind of give everybody, not kind of, I give everyone a chronological downfall of when drugs got introduced into my life, the people and what role they played. I mean, I became something and somebody I didn't know. And there's not much, you couldn't get much lower. And I was in a state of hopelessness. I was in a cycle of being lost, afraid, and thinking, what's the point? I'm never going to get out of this thing. And then there's too much shame, too much guilt, too much trauma, and not enough help or resources. And I felt like I was never going to get out alive. And so many things kept happening for many of you that are in addiction. Obviously, you know that when crystal meth or drugs in general are in your life, you kind of get blackballed into that dark world and you're guilty by association and you get plunged into a world that you had no idea even existed. And I wanted to give people a front row seat to that, but also show people the resilience and the capability and ability to just get recovery or sobriety or have that hope. And I'm hoping that people can see that in my writing, or there's something that I say that will resonate with you and give you some inspiration and some hope.
That's brilliant. I love that. I was watching a TED talk actually the other day, and it was entitled the positive things about addicts. And you mentioned there like resilience. That is a massive thing. Addicts are really resilient. We just haven't shown the world just how resilient we are yet, or people don't understand what you go through every day fighting and just surviving. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I was quite stunned. I would always say, if I ever get out of this thing alive, I'm gonna write about it. In my book, there's five or six super traumatic events, which I also wanted to show the resilience of being able to become empowered by your trauma, overcome your trauma, and don't let your trauma weigh you down and control you. And I wanted to show that through either my therapy or what really worked for me. I actually was in and out of jail for the last 2 years. My last jail stunt was January this year to May, and I've hit my rock bottom a couple times, but this time it was, when I went into jail this time, there was a sense of finality, a sense of defeat, a sense of I can't do this anymore. Like something's got to change. There was a couple key factors of when I was in jail and my mom would come in, because when you're in addiction, you have no conception of time or date or, for those 7 years, I was in a time warp and really I didn't understand that life was going on around me outside of the city. So when I'd get incarcerated and I'd have my mom come in and I'd get a reality check, there was lines on her faces. She was getting older. My little brothers were graduating, and I felt I was doing Bible studies and AA in jail with other 40, 50, 60-year-old men that have been in here for 30, 40 years that are never going to get out of this cycle. And that scared me because that could very well be me. I'm 30. I still have time to have a life and change things around. And I felt I'm giving all of this away for fentanyl and crime and living in this life. Like, how is that a fair trade? So I kind of had that aha moment and started to write. And I thought it would be destructive. Like, I was actually quite scared to even begin trying to even write, our list or make a web on a piece of paper of, oh, each person I dated and what part they played in my downfall, what they introduced me to, what they exposed me to, not for pity or victimization. I'm fully responsible for my actions, and I am a firm believer of owning your shit, and I own mine. I don't, the people I dated are not responsible for my drug use. Even if they introduced it to me, I'm the one who chose to smoke it. Sure, there may be having someone you love in the situation you're in, the circumstances saying, it's okay, let's do it together. It's okay, take the pipe, let's smoke some crystal meth together. You know, I did it, and it was confusing having someone you love say it's okay. It's like, let's do it together. It's fine. And for me, in that situation, my first partner wanted an open relationship after a year and a half, and that was detrimental to my self-worth, knowing that they wanted more or I wasn't enough. So that was hurtful. And I still stayed because I didn't want to move back downtown or down to Langley. I wanted to stay in the city, and we had an apartment there. So I stayed, even though I knew it wouldn't be the person that I would be with. And so when he wanted to do this drug with me, I felt like he was choosing me finally. So it was a lot of mental things going on. It was like now if someone was to bring me drugs or someone I love, I'm dating, brought me drugs and said, let's do some crack, I'd be like, get out of here. Like a normal healthy mind would be like, no, that's not an option for me. But given the situation of what I was in, I just want to show up that it doesn't discriminate. Like, people, I was a normal person that worked. And I use that normal with quotations because I don't believe in a normal, but for society normal, I had a full-time job. I had a license, I had a car, I worked Monday to Friday. I was a chief of operations at a roll shutter company. I made good money and we had joint bank accounts. I went to AA for him as a supporter at first, thinking he only had a past with alcohol. I didn't even know that he actually had crystal meth in his past. So when he relapsed on it, I was shocked. So
Mm.
I just wanted to show that this disease doesn't discriminate, and people, normal society, normally deemed people can fall into it just as anyone else. But so not to judge.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And there's so many people that are functioning addicts as well. I mean, I know with the NHS in Britain, the amount that is they deem a safe level to drink is something really tiny, like 4 small glasses of wine a week. Anything more than that, you're an excessive drinker. And at one stage when I was really, really bad, I was on 2 boxes of wine and 4 cans of lager a day. And that was just so I could function. It got really, really bad. But I was working for a long, long time and drinking. And so I felt it was okay.
Well, and
And
alcohol is a hard one because society, alcohol is acceptable. They serve alcohol at every restaurant. There's tons of brew houses. It's so easy for it to become something casual, but so quickly when you're using it as an escape or you're not in the right emotion. I always say, like, are you using the drug or is the drug using you? And if you're unsure, you have a problem. Like it's one thing, like you said, if you have a glass of wine after work and it's casual and you don't feel you need it or have to have it. Like once those lines get a little bit blurred, I think that's when you need to really start reflecting. But alcohol is a tough one because it's so socially acceptable.
Yeah. So, what was it the moment that you went to prison that you had? I call it like that eureka moment that you realized that this was your downfall at the time. And were you off the drugs at that point, or
Um, you would say, I mean, I think I hit rock bottom a couple times, but that aha moment that you're talking about, so I was arrested January 17th this year. On the 16th, I was in my SRO, which is a government paid kind of apartment building. They put a bunch of addicts in. And I remember being high on fentanyl, so depressed, so unhappy in the relationship I was in, and just miserable and crying to my mom on the phone. And I remember thinking, like, there's no other drug. Like, fentanyl is the ultimate band-aid they have right now to numb the pain. And it's not working anymore. I'm still a mess. I'm still not escaping. Something's got to change. And I was arrested the next day because I didn't show up for a court appearance. When I say there was a sense of finality, it sounds silly, but this time being arrested, I mean, usually so the second partner I had was a fraudster, I didn't even know what fraud was going into the city. So he frauded me, my bank accounts. I had a $40,000 car that he went and impersonated me and got a $15,000 equity loan out in my name and put my car as collateral. And when he stole my car and hit an oncoming woman and fled the scene of an accident, he was arrested. I got a phone call to go pick up my car from the tow yard. And when I went there, they said the new owner has come and pick up your $40,000 car. And I said, "What are you talking about? I'm the only owner." And they gave me a business card. And apparently, because I defaulted on this $15,000 equity repayment loan plan, my car was signed over as collateral. So I got into it. I had to learn how to do fraud to protect myself. Plus, I was just around these kind of people doing crime. Before that, I was escorting with my first partner. When we lost our jobs, he suggested, let's escort like I've done it in the past. So we started escorting together. That was kind of our rule. But then, as you said, some are functioning addicts and some are not. And he was somebody that could not function. So his body was breaking down and became less desirable. So people only wanted to hire me. So started doing solo, and he collected the money still, which created a problem in our relationship even worse. So we finally separated. As soon as I got into fentanyl, my life became totally different and unmanageable. Um, I only did crystal meth before this, and kind of comes with the escorting scene. A lot of the clients that I had it was party and play. We would do crystal meth together, and it really screwed up my thinking because I had lots of lawyers, doctors, and politicians, people big in the industry and in society were hiring me, spending time with me, and shooting up crystal meth and then returning to their families and their wives. So I thought, well, they're doing the same drug as I am, and they're successful. And I had $25,000 in my safe. So when I met the second partner, I didn't know that his DOC was fentanyl, and he started stealing money from my safe. And I remember calling my mom and being like, "There's money missing from my safe." And she was like, "Hun, who's the only one that has access to your safe? Like he's the only one in your house or coming in and going." So he actually OD'd me on fentanyl. And I woke up in the emergency room, and then I was hooked on fentanyl after that. So I started spending the $20,000 I had saved. So that's how I got into fentanyl. When fentanyl came into my life, I couldn't function, I couldn't manage anymore. So I had to start doing crime to make money because I couldn't sell my body anymore, really. And so so anyway, my whole point of that is when you're doing crime and you're doing fraud or you're working and doing deals on the city or downtown on the streets with other people, you kind of are always on the run from the police or you're waiting to get arrested because you've done jobs, you've gone into banks and impersonated other people, like you're kind of on the cops' radar, so you're waiting for the fraud squad to find you. But this last year, me and my partner were done with the anxiety of that, so we decided we would stop doing crime. So when I got arrested, I was so defeated because I was not expecting it. because I had stopped all of the illegal activity. So when I only, it's not like I was got caught doing another crime. It's because I just didn't show up to court, so I had a warrant. So they did a name check on me, a random officer did on the street on my way to get my medication. So when I was arrested, I was so exhausted and to go back into the jail politics. So that was kind of a big aha moment for me too, like this round going into jail. It was something different for me. It hit me differently.
I think that's really important what you said as well. It made me think once they say the easy bit is giving up the substance, behavior, whatever addiction it is, the hard work starts when you're clean and sober, when you've got to deal with these emotions and thoughts and feelings and things that have happened in the past. And you could be clean and sober a year or two, and something will come from your past to bite you on the behind. And that resilience and strength that you've been building, you need that.
Well,
Excuse
that's
me,
why
sorry.
I think it's really important on that note. If you don't, if it comes back and bites you on the behind and you haven't actually healed from the trauma, like you're right, as soon as you get sober, the hard part starts because you gotta unpack everything. Everything you've suppressed, you've shoved down your throat, you've hidden back your tears, all of those things for however many years you've been using drugs because you've wired your body to emotionally respond to trauma or disappointment by using drugs. So you got to retrain yourself, rewire yourself, unpack everything, do a moral inventory, do the 12 steps, or some form of healing so that when it does, if something does come and attack you in the future, you don't resort back because you haven't retrained yourself.
Really important. What do you do now? You mentioned the steps, and what is your way of coping and healing yourself from the past?
Um, Writing was a big thing for me. Like I actually, like when I started writing my book in jail, I didn't think it would become something so big and powerful. I wasn't planning on publishing it globally for the world to read or to see, but it was super therapeutic for me. And I think all addicts, or even just people in general, the validation is the major thing. So when you go to a counselor or some professional to help you with your emotional baggage, just getting validated that you're validated with how you feel and what you're going through, and having someone validate you or feel validated, that was really key for me. And I got that through writing. Some people that don't write, they would maybe go to a counselor. I also go to the gym every day. I tan every day, or gym and tan at the gym. And of course, I do all my own PR content. I respond to people through my website. I get lots of people contacting me. It's an open forum, helping other families with this kind of stuff and other addicts get recovery. So that kind of makes me work my recovery every day. It's really important for me.
Yeah, I it helps me helping others in recovery. I think it keeps you grounded and and humble. It's really important. And you mentioned the family as well. I know we briefly mentioned that before, and how important it is that the families of any addict is looking after themselves, because they carry a lot of misplaced shame and guilt, and they want to put all their effort into their loved one that's suffering, when, as you quite rightly said, there is nothing they can do. The best thing they can do is be strong and look at and do that by looking after themselves. Because
Yeah.
when the person gets into recovery, when they really need or realize how much they need their mother, father, brother, sister, that's when they need to be strong. And if they've been putting all their effort into the addicted person for so long, they're not going to have the strength to be able to be in that pillar that of strength that they need at that time.
Yeah, and to touch on that, what worked for me was knowing like my mom, she loved me through it. She was always this wonderful possibility in the back of my mind that I knew when I was ready, she'd come flying in. Like she was like, listen, I got to put up boundaries. At the very beginning when I first got into addiction, she was calling around to interventionalists. She was calling into recovery houses, the government. She was so uneducated because we never had addiction in our life, in our family. So that panic state of a parent thinking, well, if I have more money, or maybe I should go rip them out of their environment, I should just pull them out, I should force them into something, or recovery, or I've failed as a parent, or this is my fault. All of those manic ways of thinking when your child or loved one is an addiction, it's kind of your like, your habitual thing to help. And none of that would have worked for me. And the addict has to be ready and willing to make a change, like you said. And what worked for me was having that wonderful possibility in the back of my mind that she's there. Like when I'm ready, she's there. So love them through it. I don't think, you know, so kind of like respectfully, listen, I see you're going through something. If you want help, I would help you now. You're not ready. I'm gonna let you I'm gonna let you do this journey because there's nothing I can do. So you do you, and whenever you're ready, I'll come in flying. But I think it's important to establish healthy boundaries, like you said, because you have to get on with your life. And you're not the one choosing addiction and drugs. Your loved one is. So you shouldn't have to live that life through them. It's just not healthy. It's not the best way to do it. Like that would be my recommendation for loved ones, for sure.
Yeah, and your mum sounds spot on, and I think um obviously I don't know how she handled it, but it sounds like she was there when she needed to be. And not if you've got somebody that's nagging you, or like you see it in the films, we'll just lock them away for a week and then it will be out of their system and everything will be fine. It just doesn't work like that. An addict will
No.
find and get what they can if they want it. And I think it's only when they start looking at why they were taking it in the first place that they can really move on and enter recovery.
Yeah, because
Because
they'll have the mindset of, well, whenever I get out of here, I'm just going to go use. Like I had that when I was in a jail for the first couple years. I would tell my mom, yeah, no, I know, because the addict, I mean, if you think about it, no addict wants to be an addict. Like, it's not a good life. Being homeless, like when people say, oh, it's a choice, they're choosing to be on the street. Okay, well, let's think about that. What person would choose to be freezing, starving, with nothing, dirty, and alone? On the street through the
yeah,
seasons, living and sleeping on buses and sky trains, getting robbed, getting raped, getting mugged, getting beaten, like getting kidnapped, all the things that I talk about in my book, seeing people get killed or overdosed, seeing humanity at its worst. Who would choose that? Like, that's the
absolutely.
one big thing I want to say, or I would say to people to be careful when they say, well, they're lazy. Well, it's a choice. Well, they can, okay, so physically, yeah, of course, it's a choice. But let's dive into that. And that's something that I say a big part of my book. Like, I tell people with that, that's kind of my hook to my book. A lot of people think that way. Well, just like spend some time with me in my book. That's where you'll find me. And let me take you on a ride and let me show you how it's so much more layered than that. And like you said, the
Absolutely.
shame, the guilt. I mean, the addict knows they're killing their family. They know they're shameful. They're embarrassed. They know they're destroy. Like I knew I was killing my mom and my brothers and my dad. Like I knew they were devastated and they were crying and they were confused and they were, at the beginning trying to they would always try to contact me or find me. It was horrible because
Mm.
I knew I was the reason for that and I wasn't making them proud. So that just adds to all of that cycle that I was talking about. It's just such a vicious cycle and there's so many more elements to addiction than what people think. And not in like a woe is me or a victim way. It's just the fact.
Yeah, as I said, very resilient, very it's and we were talking before like how so many people in addiction are so can be really spiritual and artistic and amazing minds.
Yeah,
And
they're brilliant.
sometimes that's too much for them. They need to quiet that down as well.
Yeah,
And
or they have these big dreams and they feel like they'll never get there. I mean, we look at all the greats, Amy Winehouse, Whitney Houston, like these were huge, huge artistic people that had a drug problem. So
yeah,
there's obviously talent and brilliance. It's not like shitty people are the ones that are susceptible to drugs. No, any addiction can happen to anybody. And even like there was a man that I remember passing by before I got arrested, and I was with somebody who was more judgmental, which was ironic because he was also homeless and an addict. But he was looking at this guy because he was asking for money, like kind of a panhandler. Then I stopped and I talked to him, and he actually was from Detroit, and his wife got sick, so they sold their house, sold off their assets, millions of dollars, got treatment. She was getting better, died. So she died, lost everything, and he came to Vancouver, and that was a year ago. So like
um,
as soon as I found that out, I told my friend, I'm like, you have no idea. Like, you're so, that person was a normal human, happy, and look at their circumstances that's got them here. Like, let's stop judging because they are no different than you or I or someone successful, a year ago.
yeah.
And you have no idea how you'd handle a situation like that. If your wife was sick and you had to find money and you had to sell off everything and then she died in the end, like, come on. You can't tell me that, you have no idea. Like just it was really cool to see that.
Yeah, and it's quite surprising when you hear some people's stories, like as you said, married, jobs, kids, close family. You don't know what has happened to either tip them over the edge or what they've lost. And even I was reading uh, a news article yesterday, and it was saying about Ben Cohen, who was in the England rugby squad when England won the World Cup. And during the pandemic, he sold his medal because he was about to be homeless. Okay, he might have had friends and family and people to step in and help, but he was doing the proud man thing and didn't want to share it, didn't want to offload it onto other people, and he was doing it all he could for his wife and kids. And he sold one of the most precious things that he had just to keep them going. Now that could have tipped him over the edge. We don't know how much debt he could be in. You never know.
Totally. Well, and there's a stigma also, or an assumption that people in addiction come from families of addiction. And that perception is completely wrong. I come from a good family. I had a decent childhood. I had some, I mean, I was dating women until I was 16 on my hockey team. And then I had a secret kind of love affair with someone on the team, but we both still had girlfriends. So I struggled with my sexuality for a lot, and that was something I suppressed and I was closeted. I never told anybody. I was really struggling with it because I liked women and men. So, and then my stepdad was fantastic, for until I got up to my teens, and then our relationship completely changed, and he became a bully. And I was getting bullied at school from people, then spat on and completely destroyed. So I tried to take my life at one point because of that. I didn't feel safe anywhere. But the point is, I may have had some trauma and some things happen, but like I have a great mother. She's always been my hero and a good family. And there was no addiction in our family, and it happened to me. So it could come, like I said, this disease does not discriminate.
Not at all, not at all. And as you said, when you get a bit of background, for me, it's understandable. And I don't know if it's through the generations or because I think it was when Amy Winehouse passed, or it might have been Whitney, but I can understand how and why that happened. I don't know a whole story. We know what's out in the public, but I can understand from pressure, from relationships, from the scenes that she was in. there's a lot you can pick out of there. But my nan and her generation were like, well, she had all this money. She had such a talent. She didn't need to do that. And as you said, it doesn't discriminate. It's not about money, talent, making your way in life. It's about how you feel and how you see yourself.
Yeah, I've been watching actually The Crown on Netflix, which was about the Queen and Princess Diana, and I liked that it showed that they were considered royalty and mental health, and everybody deals with these things. Like that was they were supposed to be considered like gods, the king and the queen and the royal family. But look what happened to Diana. Like it could happen to anybody, and I think we need to be a lot more understanding and open-minded, like that they are actually you and I were saying during COVID or the pandemic. I actually was on the street during this time, and it was it was hell. Like it's something I've never seen before. They shut down the injection sites, they shut down the warming sites, the shelters. You know, we had this pandemic that already made normal, healthy society people have to put on a mask, and everyone thought they were dirty. Now, addicts were treated like rodents. Like we were not allowed, like if you were homeless, there was deaths and overdoses. There was dead bodies on the streets that the emergency crew couldn't even get to fast enough because there was no, like, at least with injection sites, there's people on deck that can, help with overdoses or prevent them. Also with just injections and needles and stuff, they're all over the city, the parks for the kids to get into, because there was no place to do it. It was just a whole nother element. Like it was humanity at its worst and a whole other level. And I think it's unfortunate because that disease should have showed us, like COVID should have showed us, we're all human. We all bleed red. Anybody could get COVID. It's funny that that didn't portray into how we treated each other class-wise.
Yes, absolutely. And I think we talk about harm reduction in addiction, and it's something they sort of drill into you, isn't it? About how to do things safely and having somewhere to go. And but COVID happened and everything shuts down. And at the end of the day, alcohol, drugs, whatever, it's not only that addict, it's like a medicine. You need it. And of course, with alcohol, it can be, if you just stop, it can be a killer. So with all the shops shut, nobody helping, it just disgusted me actually how people on the streets were just forgotten about.
Yeah,
Um, as well as I mentioned domestic violence, how yeah, there's this pandemic and it's really, really scary, but you're shutting all these people away behind closed doors. You're not allowed to leave your house. What about the children and the the partners that are being abused? And not only is it the norm, if you like, for some relationships, but being locked in a house with each other is going to up that frustration for everyone.
definitely. Well,
So,
and without the street traffic too, with everyone being shut into their house, like a lot of homeless people, they need the street traffic, even for people with cell phones to report that somebody's overdosing or somebody's getting attacked. Like we had like the homeless people, yeah, you're right. Like they were just shut out, and without that foot traffic and people and shelters or just some, people that would bring food trucks or whatever, or help out. You're right. It was awful. Like, and that's when we get into the politics. I have recently been contacted by somebody through my website asking me, seems like people think, well, don't think it's true. Obviously, I live down there. I was at the injection sites. I was addicted. So they want to hear my input with this one man said that he feels that the government and people are enabling addicts by having these injection sites and warming centers and shelters. Like it's enabling the addict. And It kind of took me back a little bit because I'm someone who's a firm believer of instead of getting opinionated, I like to understand both sides of the argument. And truly, I could totally see society and people like that aren't don't have this, a lot of their tax dollars are going into this, into funding these things that they don't had nothing to do with them, and that frustration. But then I also go to the other side and I go, okay, well, like I said, during COVID, they took all these things away, and it was way worse for the community. And then it all breaks down to really the government. Like we don't have the government, especially here, doesn't have a specific wave for addicts to go into. They try, nobody wants to take no government wants to take responsibility, federal or provincial. No one wants to pay for it. So they try to clunk the addicts with medical and the emergency room, which hosts and mental health, which again, I have a couple different opinions with that because addicts shouldn't automatically be with mental health because not all addicts have a mental health problem. And then all people that actually do have a mental health that don't have addiction, they're not getting the proper treatment either because now people, addicts are in their system as well. And in the medical, I have a friend who's a registered nurse, and she said she was in the emergency rooms, and she said to me, the problem is with mental health and addiction, they're two different lanes. So with mental health, if you have somebody who's a danger to themselves or somebody else, they can get pink slipped and put under psychiatric hold. Addicts, because as soon as they have addiction on them, they can't be pink slipped, so they can do whatever they want. And you can't hold them or do anything. So that's a
Yeah,
problem. And then if we do it to the judicial side, Department of Justice, they try to slug everyone over there, which clogs up the criminal system. And like jail's not a nice place for anybody. I had 4 seizures while I was in jail. I was attacked a couple times. Um, like it's not, I may have gotten recovery in there, but it wasn't because jail was great. It was because I was forced into sobriety and they had me on methadone right away, which is a whole nother issue with that too, because the pharmaceuticals are enabling and they've also given for legal drugs and they have no recovery or detox system. They'll just pump you with as much methadone or Sublocade or Suboxone as you want, and it's up to the addict. Well, when you're in jail, what addict is going to say, well, I only want 40 mils or I only want 50 mils? You get brought in off the street and your street level of addiction is up here, and they mandatorily start you down here, and then you can go up by 10 mils every week. So you're withdrawing that whole time to get up to your street level. That's probably about 4 or 5 months in jail at this time. And then you have to request to be microdosed off, which I did. I said, when I walk out of here, I want to be at zero. I want to be on no opiates. I had to withdraw all over again, going down. So I withdrawed twice, which unless you've actually had a fentanyl and alcohol, you're right, it is horrible. I've never really been an alcoholic. However, when I would get arrested and put into city cells in Vancouver, which is where before you go to jail or a pretrial center, they put you in city cells, it's called, where they assess you, they detain you, they do your fingerprints. You have to stay overnight, and then you get a mandatory bail hearing, or you go in front of a judge the next day to see if you can get out on bail, or they're going to hold you. And during that 24 hours, you're withdrawing. And it was interesting for me because I was beside other different types of addictions, and alcohol happened to be the worst withdrawing one. There was like projectile vomiting, there was people seizuring out right away. Like it was interesting to me because I thought being that fentanyl was the most lethal, that my withdrawal was going to be the worst. But beside me, alcohol took the cake by far, which was shocking because that's legal. I mean, technically, they've legalized fentanyl and crystal meth now in Vancouver, which is crazy. It's actually more illegal downtown Vancouver to smoke a cigarette by the front door of a business than it is fentanyl and crystal meth. That's a problem.
it's crazy. Priorities. I don't know where they even start thinking about any of this. And sort of going back over what you were saying, I know in the UK, with the addict, you have to look at every part of them. So if the addicts are homeless, you can't throw a home at them and say, there you are, there's a home, you'll be okay now. doesn't work like that. There's some people that don't know how to budget, have never paid a bill in their life. They don't know how to wash their clothes. Some
They don't
people
know how to cook
haven't been
food.
schooled. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
there's there's that all that with a home, or you might have, I mean, they're getting better in the UK now, but they'll put you on benefits because you had no money, but you couldn't get benefits because you had no address. You couldn't get a bank account, so you couldn't have benefits.
yeah.
So they were always trying to help in one area, so we'll give them a home. No, that's not working. Right, we'll spend it all on detox. But that's fine. When they're detox, they can sort their own life out. They won't have a home, they won't have any support, they won't need therapy because they would have had enough in treatment. They'll be fine just to find their own way after they leave treatment. It doesn't work like that. You've got to support the whole being through a
It's basically
process.
like yeah, baby adult. Like yeah, that addict is reborn and it's a child. Like even when I got out of jail, I was so regimented, like I had to get my own schedule again when I came back home. I didn't even know how to get up in the morning. Like I didn't know how to make breakfast. Like and yeah, like rebudgeting, refinancing, getting your bank accounts in order. I mean, downtown Vancouver during addiction, they give like I was on disability, used to be addiction, depression, anxiety. That's what I'm technically diagnosed with. Addiction is no longer a reason to get disability apparently, but anxiety and depression still is. But you're right, and I can speak from my own experience because I was given an SRO. The first time I was given an SRO off the streets, it was more dangerous for me to have a place because people knew where to find me and I got robbed all the time. It was actually more unsafe because there's a desk person and then that's it. There's no security, there's no people were killing each other, they were stealing from each other, they were holding each other captive in their own in these rooms. They were, there was feces all over the ground because they don't have bathrooms in these rooms. You have to go to the public bathroom in the hallway, which is locked. So you have to go to the front to get the guy, which there's only one guy. So by then you've already soiled yourself or, made a mess. And then the second time I had a partner, so we both lived together, which I felt safer. But yeah, no, these places were disgusting. Like they had I mean, addicts are, no offense, I was one, are gross. Like we don't, there's no showers in these rooms. It's a public shower, which is disgusting. There's a microwave, but you don't, have cleaning products. You have to remember the addict is spending every cent they have on a drug. It's already costing them everything they have and more, which is why they steal from each other or break into places or do crime. So
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. You need a reintegration program, which I had in this jail. I decided I wanted one. I had a peer worker and a community transition team leader, and they were detrimental to my return. Of course, I came back home and had my mom and my brother, so I was very lucky. I didn't need I actually did put my name on a recovery bed list, one of the best ones while I was in jail. And because I just chose to microdose off, which in jail they said we haven't had any inmate that actually has requested to put me on a plan so that I'm microdosing off. I don't want to be at the highest level. I want to walk out of here at zero. And they said they haven't even had that before. So I kind of set myself up for success, which I think they need to change the system in jail because if you're going to clunk people or addicts with medical or the Department of Justice, like jail, that's the point of contact you get with an addict. So I think there should be a lot more structure and support there to put them on a regimented plan to maybe match their street level. If not, because they're worried that some people, there's no way to detect the level of the amount of drugs the person is using from the street. So that's the problem. So we can
right.
do a
Yeah,
pee sample and we can see you have benzos or fentanyl in your pee. So it's in your system, but we don't know your usage. So that's the problem. So I understand that part of it, but you don't need to start them at 30 mils. Like that does absolutely nothing. Like why don't we, if the max is 400 mils, why aren't we maybe upping it to 60 or 70 so their withdrawal symptoms are actually gone right away So then they can just start tapering. Like they shouldn't even have an option to be up to 400.
Mm.
Like this shouldn't even be an option because then, and we should also be looking at when the person is getting bail or released because if we get them up to 400 to match their street level, or so they say, when they get released out of jail, where are they going? Their usage is still at its maximum height. They're going to go right back downtown to get drugs and continue doing crime.
Do you know, I love talking to people like yourself that have been through this because to me it seems so obvious. It really, really does. And I can't see where their logic comes from. Even simple maths and science will tell you that. And like you said, with the withdrawals, 30 mil isn't going to touch somebody. And you can see by how the body reacts if that's enough for them, you know? And I just find it completely crazy that we are setting people up in jail to fail, to come out and just continue as they were. If there was an incentive, as you said, start them at a higher level, help them reduce, look at their parole date or release dates, give them an incentive to want to reduce, have a life to go out to, not just, well, you won't be withdrawing when you leave here, so you're all right. You'll be okay for a couple of hours until you find your next fix. That's
Yeah, we're just
basically what they're
maintaining
saying.
you. Yeah, they're just saying we're gonna float you. We're just gonna float you. So your stay here is, better than withdrawing the whole time. Plus, they don't want to take the responsibility on detoxing a bunch of people and criminals. But I mean, then we, like you and I talked about, the whole system with detox, and even before, if we catch an addict before they start doing crime and getting into that system, because it happens with drugs downtown and homelessness. At some point, you're going to have to start doing crime to make money. So that kind of comes with drug use. And if we can get the detox systems that we have here are not set up for success for the demographic. Right now, if you do an intervention or you get an addict that says, okay, yeah, I need help, I need to get out of this, I'm ready, there's no door for them to go in, unless you have $20,000 private to take you to a private detox center. And for those of you that don't know, you can't go from active addiction to a recovery house or a treatment center before having 30 days of detox. They will not admit you because you need to detox first. Then for the people that are on disability or, help from the government, they do offer a free or covered, expense covered place for detox, but you're going to be on a wait list for weeks, if not months. And the addict has to call in every day to show you're serious about it. Okay, so let's think about that. If we get an addict, they say, yeah, no, I'm in, but we got to wait a couple of weeks. The addict's going to return back to the environment and use drugs until they're ready. Okay, what addict has a phone or can call every day? It just
Yeah.
doesn't happen downtown. I think I went through 9,000 phones in the 7 years that I was down there. My phone was one of the most valuable things that was stolen on the streets. I mean, down there, if you fall asleep anywhere, you wake up, you're robbed. Everything you own is gone, unless it's up your body or glued to your body, it's gone.
Yeah.
It's
But I think
just not set up.
when I was on the streets, I think a phone lasted me the most about 2, 3 days.
Totally.
Yeah, ridiculous. I'm just thinking, is there anything else you wanted to mention before I move on to your book?
No, I think we've talked about a lot of it. One of the main messages I just really want to get out to people is that, it's possible. Like we can get through this. There are people like you and I that are on the other end of it. And as we talked about, I think there's something very powerful in being vulnerable and sharing your story so that people can feel relatable or mutual to you or feel safe or feel understood and validated. And I'm hoping, it wasn't always a plan to publish my book and make it public. But before I got into addiction, I wanted to be a counselor or a life coach. I've always wanted to help people, and that kind of stuck with me throughout my addiction. So it's kind of cool for me to come out on this end to be like, I think maybe I was meant to go through this because it gave me a ride. I mean, I'm lucky I overdosed 7 times. This is my eighth life. I'm lucky to be here. And I think if I didn't have these experiences that I lived through, I wouldn't have had anything to write about. So even through it all, I wouldn't take anything back because it's now giving me the opportunity to help so many other people that have gone through some of the tough topics, like I talk about, escorting or being sexually assaulted, overdosing, being kidnapped, being held at gunpoint, the trauma of seeing life get taken away, death, just trauma in general. It gave me an ability to talk about it, and I'm hoping that I can really, I'm happy that I decided to share it.
That is beautiful. And I love that because for whatever reason, some people in addiction find that first step of asking for help and reaching out, they find that so difficult, whether it's denial, they're scared about treatment, they're scared about what happens after treatment. For whatever reason, that is the biggest step, speaking out and speaking to people like you and I. I'm sure there's not a lot that we haven't heard before, that it's not a judgment thing, that we don't judge. We understand what goes in hand with addiction and that life. Um, it's not something, as you said, that we choose. So having somebody who, as you said, understands and can just be that listening ear, or even if you don't want to say anything, just have a chat. Don't talk about addiction. You will resonate with that person anyway. You'll have that connection. You'll get it, and that will
Yeah,
give you the strength to speak more.
yeah, there's something really remarkable about, addicts respect other addicts that have gone through it. Like when I was in addiction and I had other people in suits or counselors or other people that have a bachelor's in, education with counseling or life coaching, but they hadn't have addiction or any lived experience. I told them to piss off. There's no way you got me. You don't understand me. You can po not possibly help me. And so when I did my peer working certification, that is the big thing. It's not a clinical background, it's a lived experience and wisdom background. And they're starting to realize now, with Canada and mental health and substance, BC mental health and addiction, substance abuse, they're starting to understand how valuable it is to have a peer instead of just a counselor because they get through, they're relatable and mutual. Those are the two pillars I learned in getting certified, so I totally agree with you.
Brilliant. Yeah, you've got the most important qualification in the world, in my opinion.
Thanks, I try.
So tell me, with the release of this book, how did you go about publishing your own book? Because it must be quite daunting, not only to write it, but to think about the publishing and the artwork and a name for it.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of questions about that because I mean, there's not really they're like when you think about, well, I want to make a book, there's two different lanes. You can do traditional, which costs money, or it's like getting a record deal. Like it's super rare to find a traditional publisher. So you kind of go down, I went down the self-publishing on Amazon KDP. And I used Chat GPT. It's an AI app that you can ask it anything. And I actually just asked, like, how do I publish my own book? And it would give me the steps. And so I just did the research. I started writing it I started writing in jail, and then I came out and I started making it digital. So I did it on Microsoft Word, and Amazon KDP actually has a really good system that you can just upload your manuscript from your Microsoft Word, and it'll convert it right on Amazon KDP when you make an account. And then it'll generate some. So when it comes to the book cover and art, I had one book cover, but it was copyrighted from Google, so I had to take that off. Then I decided so the cover of my book, actually, I chose that one. It's very controversial because that's actually a photo of me during active addiction when I was a sex worker. And I wanted to show people to not judge because someone will look at that cover and go, wow, he looks healthy or attractive or something. But really, when you read the book, you'll find out I was the most unhealthy and unhappy and most unsafe I've ever been in my entire life. So I wanted to show that as a controversial thing. Also, I took the photo and it's of me, so I'm not worried about copyright law. That was a big thing for me because I didn't want people to come out of the woodwork and try to take a piece of the success. So I like that it's of me, it's my photo. And then you upload that onto KDP. It'll design your cover, it'll design your back and your spine of your book. It's actually a really easy system, which I wish
Wow.
somebody would have told me because I think I complicated it more in my head. Like I thought I had downloaded Adobe InDesign and had to try to learn because I didn't say you could use Microsoft Word when I first started. So I typed my whole manuscript onto Adobe. I paid for Adobe, and then it wouldn't upload it to Amazon KDP, and I was like, "Are you kidding me right now?" And it just said, no, you could just use Microsoft Word. I'm like, ah. So yeah, I mean, I would definitely recommend getting it edited. I had two editors. I'm really lucky, but my best friend Kelsey, she has an uncle who's the superintendent of Vancouver Island. He was in the school district. He's retired. He did the first one. And I actually had the second editor, Wendy Cook. She was my old history AP teacher from DW Poppy Secondary, who's retired, and also the Langley superintendent. So I got lucky with those two editors. They did it for free, and I worked with them for a couple months. And then yeah, I directly uploaded it on Amazon. And then once you're on Amazon, you can distribute the rights for them to distribute it to anybody. So now when you search my book, it's on a bunch of different sites that all funnels down to Amazon, and I get paid through Amazon. I put it onto Google Play Store, Google Books, Barnes& and Noble, Kobo, Rakuten, and Chapters Indigo.
Fab. I know I had because I think on your site the UK link wasn't on there, so you sent me that, so I'll put that in there as well. So because I didn't Google in the Amazon search I put Finding My Lost Life and it didn't come up, so I'll definitely put that link in there.
Yeah, for some reason, I'm not sure why, but Amazon, you have to click. So you put in the book, either my name, Jeremy Cross, or Finding My Lost Life, and then you actually have to click categories and then click memoirs or biographies, and
Oh
then it
right,
comes
okay.
up. For some reason, yeah, you got to put in a category.
All right, brilliant. That's really useful to know. But yeah, all your links will be in there. And I was smiling when you said about that picture is from active addiction because I had a conversation earlier with Victoria, who does some work for me, and she wanted pictures of me when I was in addiction. So I've sent her all the ones of me with my Kansas Stella and looking out of it. And I actually sent her one and I said, it doesn't look like it because it's a lovely, lovely picture. And it's of me and my mum on a mother daughter makeover day. And we both look really good. But that was 2 months before I went to rehab and I was really, really poorly, really poorly. So I said, please start it with don't be fooled. It's not what it looks like. This was me 2 months before. I was dying. It's they call it slow suicide, don't they? And
Yeah, I know, I totally agree. Well, this photo actually was when I was escorting, so this would have been 2 years into addiction. And if you actually go into my book on the back page where you were saying you looked at the epilogue, there's a photo of me in about 5.5 years in when I came to visit my family home, and I was 98 pounds. I was skin and bone, and I put those three photos in the back of my book. It's also on my website as well to show how deep I was. Like everything changed when I became homeless and fentanyl got into my life.
yeah, I've seen them and it is absolutely amazing. And how do you feel? I suppose to end with that, how are you feeling now physically and your energy and your outlook? How is this massive journey left you now?
Um, I mean, I feel great about everything, like spreading the word and doing these kind of things. Maybe like if I mean, and don't get me wrong, like it may look like I'm doing super great from the outside, which I am, but I mean, I do want to sh also show to people too, like I have my days, and the one thing that really helps me, which I would recommend to everybody, for people that sometimes have those days or thoughts that come into their head that they're maybe missing their last, their past life, or, they're kind of thinking about using or relapsing. My thing that I do is I play the tape. So I like play the tape in my head, what that's going to look like. So if I leave here now, I devastate my family, the trust I've earned back, I'll ruin forever because now I've given them, I'm sober for almost 11 months now I've been here, and that would be terrible for them. They would never trust me again. I worked really hard to get that back. I'd go pick up. I'd end up back downtown. I would lose my bank accounts again, my license. I would never I would break my conditions because I'm still on. I still have a year left of my probation, or about 10 months left of my probation. Like I just play the tape of what it would happen. And then I have to go through withdrawal all over again and get back on methadone again. And like it's just not worth the downfall, and that's something that really works for me. So that's what kind of keeps me if I have days that I'm like, meh, like I could, you know what I mean? So that really,
Definitely.
but I like helping people. So having so many people, read the book and what I'm hearing from everyone around the world and stuff, like it makes me feel like I'm doing the right thing. I think the universe is working through me and with me.
Most definitely. I completely agree. And off the back end of that, you saying that one of the one thing that really helped me when I was in rehab actually was a counselor said I think it's especially in alcoholics because it's such a depressant, but in early recovery, your mood will just go like this in waves, and you'll have long days of feeling really down and fed up, and then you'll feel good again for a few days, and then it'll be, and it's just your natural body just regulating again and starting to come back. And as over time, it'll go much quicker. You'll have a bad day, but then four really good days. And I embrace those bad days now when things are really getting me down, and there's no reason to really. I just feel miserable. I just embrace it and go with it and tell myself this is only going to last a day or so. So read a
Yeah, I have
book
those
or,
days. Yeah.
yeah,
I just tell I go to the gym every day with my friend Kelsey, and I'm like, I'm having a day. Like yeah, it's totally normal. It happens. Like, not to, like I said, I think we're so wired to that when we feel off or something's not right, that we escape to use drugs, or we need something to escape this feeling. So I think you're right. If you just sit with it and know this is just you're totally right. Your body is you're going through recovery and detox. The biology of your body is going through massive changes. Like every cell in your body, every piece of your hair, like it is reforming, regenerating. Like you've just been screwing with the chemistry of your body with deadly, deadly, deadly drugs for however many years, or alcohol. Alcohol is basically poison if you break it down. Like so, or whatever it is, like you've just been destroying it. Like it's got to take, you're not just going to snap your fingers and your body's going to be like, oh, I'm done. Like you got to
yeah,
give yourself some time.
yeah. You just your body doesn't know what the hell's going on. You
Yeah,
know,
seriously. It's like, what the fuck? Yeah.
and people see you, they say you look so much better, and you're thinking, I don't fucking feel it, you
Hey, I want to put
know.
a fork in my eye.
But that's it. It doesn't last, and the sun will shine, and you'll have good days and bad days.
Yeah. Just hang in there. It's better than being on the street, and it's better being a slave. Like, yeah, I wake up every morning and I'm like, I'm so glad at least I'm not like the first thought I would get into when I'd open my eyes down there would be like, I need money, I need drugs. Like, what am I gonna do? Where am I? Like, you're in constant chaos and go, 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 go. You're going a million miles an hour. That was my other thing. I was actually uncomfortable in calm environments. Like, I still am a little bit like being in a peaceful safe environment without things going on everywhere. It was actually, it's uncomfortable for me. Like I'm like a fish out of water here. But it's just reprogramming. You got to reprogram, rewire. I would recommend writing things down, talking to, yeah, a partner, a lad, or even just a professional, getting a peer worker. Like, I think that's really important. Um, it's better than the alternative. That's what I would say. You know, if you think
Definitely.
that being on drugs is better than being sober, well, then you haven't done the work.
Yeah. And there's a lot to do, but it's very rewarding. It's very
Totally.
rewarding.
That's why I wanted, as much as I wanted my book to be a fascinating, shocking awareness of some of the things I've talked about here today, I wanted it to be intriguing and I wanted to bring awareness. I also wanted it, that's why I called it, and it's defining my lost life. I referred to that because I felt like I'd lost my life. Like I've lost my life completely and I'm forever looking to find it again. So when I got sober, that's why I named it Finding My Lost Life, because I do feel like us addicts, we've lost our life. We feel like we've lost it. And then the fall to addiction and rise to recovery is pretty self-explanatory. I wanted to show that just because we fall, it's not about where we fall and how hard we fall, it's how we get back up.
Definitely. And I think you've stated that so well. And it's just an absolute pleasure talking to you and hearing your story. I feel honored and thank you so much for sharing it with all of us.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. And I
Absolute
hope
pleasure.
everyone checks out my book. Like you said, it's on my website, www.jeremycross.ca, for more information about me and my book. And you can also contact me or book me for a peer working session there as well.
Fantastic. All your links will be in the description.
Thank you so
Amazing.
much.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you.